Welcome to A Year of War and Peace. I'm your host, Brian E. Denton. A Year of War and Peace is a daily, year-long, chapter-by-chapter reading of and meditation on Leo Tolstoy's epic novel, War and Peace. In these videos and podcasts, you'll be treated to a free reading of one chapter per day of the novel, plus a reflective essay I've written individually tailored to that day's chapter. These readings are offered for free, though if you'd like to support me, you can do so in one of three ways. First, you could purchase my ebook, A Year of War and Peace. It features the entire novel, plus all of my reflective essays, and it's only $2.99 on Amazon.com. You could also become a patron at patreon.com/BrianEDenton. If you sign up there, you'll receive a sonnet once a month, plus a link to an ebook of my collected sonnets. Finally, if you like, you can make a one-time donation to my PayPal account. The email there is brianedenton@gmail.com. You can also use that email to contact me. I'd be happy to hear from you. Your support is greatly appreciated. Today's reading and reflection is on Chapter 86. Chapter 86. The day after he had been received into the lodge, Pierre was sitting at home reading a book and trying to fathom the significance of the square, one side of which symbolized God, another moral things, a third physical things, and the fourth a combination of these. Now and then his attention wandered from the book and the square, and he formed in his imagination a new plan of life. On the previous evening at the lodge, he had heard that a rumor of his duel had reached the emperor, and that it would be wiser for him to leave Petersburg. Pierre proposed going to his estates in the south, and there attending to the welfare of his serfs. He was joyfully planning his new life, when Prince Vasily suddenly entered the room. "My dear fellow, what have you been up to in Moscow? Why have you quarreled with Helene, mon cher? You are under a delusion," said Prince Vasily as he entered. "I know all about it, and I can tell you positively that Helene is an innocent before you as Christ was before the Jews." Pierre was about to reply, but Prince Vasily interrupted him. "And why didn't you simply come straight to me as to a friend? I know all about it and understand it all," he said. "You behaved as becomes a man who values his honor, perhaps too hastily, but we won't go into that. But consider the position in which you were placing her and me in the eyes of society, and even of the court," he added, lowering his voice. "She is living in Moscow, and you are here. Remember, dear boy," and he drew Pierre's arm downwards, "it is simply a misunderstanding. I expect you feel it so yourself. Let us write her a letter at once, and she'll come here, and all will be explained, or else, my dear boy, let me tell you it's quite likely you'll have to suffer for it." Prince Vasily gave Pierre a significant look. "I know from reliable sources that the Dowager Empress is taking a keen interest in the whole affair. You know she is very gracious to Helene." Pierre tried several times to speak, but on one hand, Prince Vasily did not let him, and on the other, Pierre himself feared to begin to speak in the tone of decided refusal and disagreement in which he had firmly resolved to answer his father-in-law. Moreover, the words of the Masonic statutes, "Be kindly and courteous," recurred to him. He blinked, went red, got up and sat down again, struggling with himself to do what was for him the most difficult thing in life, to say an unpleasant thing to a man's face, to say what the other, whoever he might be, did not expect. He was so used to submitting to Prince Vasily's tone of careless self-assurance that he felt he would be unable to withstand it now. But he also felt that on what he had said now his future depended. Whether he would follow the same old road, or that new path so attractively shown him by the Masons, on which he firmly believed he would be reborn to a new life. "Now, dear boy," said Prince Vasily playfully, "say yes, and I'll write to her myself, and we will kill all this fatted calf." But before Prince Vasily had finished his playful speech, Pierre, without looking at him, and with a kind of fury that made him like his father, muttered in a whisper, "Prince, I did not ask you here. Go, please go." And he jumped up and opened the door before him. "Go," he repeated, amazed at himself, and glad to see the look of confusion and fear that showed itself on Prince Vasily's face. "What's the matter with you? Are you ill?" "Go," the quivering voice repeated. And Prince Vasily had to go without receiving any explanation. A week later, Pierre, having taken leave of his new friends, the Masons, and leaving large sums of money with them for alms, went away to his estates. His new brethren gave him letters to the Kiev and Odessa Masons, and promised to write to him and guide him in his new activity. All right, so that completes my reading of chapter 86. Hope you liked it. I'll now be proceeding to my reflection on the same. A Year of War and Peace, Day 86. Practice. Today Pierre answers that perennial question, partly at least, as to whether or not philosophy is practical at all. The answer, it turns out, at least for today, is that yes, in some cases it actually is. Consider Pierre before his philosophical encounter with the Freemasons. He's been pretty much all over the place. In one of our first chapters with him, way back at Anna Pavlovna's first soiree, we see that his mind is so frenetic that he can hardly articulate his ideas on Napoleon. He definitely can't defend them. Later, he's quite literally tricked into marrying Helene. So he's not the most mentally fortitudinous of individuals. Not yet, anyway. We'll see first if the lessons he's learning with the Freemasons aid him in his quest for self-improvement. Then we'll see, if they do, whether or not they'll stick with him and become part of his personality. Today, Pierre is offered an opportunity to practice what he's been preached. In fact, the chapter opens with Pierre reading a book the Freemasons gave him. Some of these ideas, therefore, are fresh in his mind. As he reads, he reflects on how he should employ these new ideas in his life. Then his father-in-law, Prince Vasily, enters. Vasily, you'll recall, is pretty much Pierre's greatest enemy, pushing Pierre to do things he wouldn't otherwise have done. Today, Vasily wants Pierre to return to his wife. But this time, Pierre does not submit. He goes with what he thinks to be right according to his new philosophical principles. He demands that Vasily leave him in peace, and then he goes about his business. Daily meditation. Put your reading into practice immediately. Seneca, Letter on the Subjects of Philosophy. All right, so that concludes my reading of and reflection on chapter 86. I hope you liked it. Thanks so much for listening. Remember that if you'd like to support me, you can do so either by purchasing the ebook, A Year of War and Peace, becoming a patron at patreon.com, or making a one-time donation at PayPal. The links to all that are below. Your support is greatly appreciated. Tomorrow, we will be reading and reflecting on chapter 87. Hope you'll join me. Until then, take care of yourselves and of others.